like to introduce on stage for the corporate travel market panel. Is it gone forever or is it different? I'd like to introduce on stage Nicole Dobson, who's the Regional Vice President, Australia, New Zealand Pacific for Amadeus, who's come across from Melbourne. Thank you, Nicole. Kelly Williamson, Area Director of Sales and Marketing, New Zealand for IHG. Shweta, Mhatre, Cluster Director of Sales, Hilton, New Zealand. And Mehdi from Rectrak. So please welcome my panel on corporate travel. Are we seeing the return of corporate travel in New Zealand, and if any changes there are? Who would like to go first?
Not specifically to New Zealand, but I was going to say that definitely my experience and what we're seeing at Amadeus with the data that we have is that as soon as the borders opened, corporate travel started to return, which is very positive. So in Australia, and I know that we're talking about New Zealand, but we know that sometimes these tend to follow, is that we're up to 2019 levels for the corporate business, and this is from our Agency 360 global distribution data, GDS data. And the other positive thing is that ADR is holding strong. So I looked at the market data in Agency 360 for Australia and New Zealand. And year to date, Australia is 40%, room night growth with a 7.5% ADR increase. New Zealand year to date was sitting behind at only about 15%. And ADR was only down about 1%. So we know that that may change a little bit with more supply. But May and June were over in both room nights. Interesting, and Mel will take you through more data, more detail tomorrow, but we are seeing a little bit of a flip, or we are seeing initial flip where there's more non-negotiated than negotiated being booked at the moment, but I expect that shift to change.
Yeah, I will agree with Nicole on that. We're definitely seeing an appetite for corporate travel, and in fact, just in line with what Nicole just said, we are seeing 2019 levels returning. So since the reopening of the borders in April, May, definitely corporate travel has picked up. And for us at Hilton, we've exceeded the numbers for 2019 in terms of domestic corporate travel.
Recently? Or?
Recently, so since April. Yep. Just in terms of lead time as well, it's interesting to see the lead time that we were seeing pre-COVID. Yep. We are seeing that for the back end of this year. So it's definitely a positive outlook just in terms of corporate travel. And yes, there are a lot more non-negotiated clients coming through, but as long as they are coming in Monday to Thursday, we know that there's this still appetite for corporate market.
Fantastic. Kelly?
Yeah, I think I was sitting at AHICE earlier on hearing about all of these amazing stats that were coming through Australia and sitting there hoping that it was going to happen for New Zealand because we weren't seeing it at that stage for numerous reasons, obviously Auckland and New Zealand still being in lockdown at that stage. But now we've just seen, if we look at June as a complete month, it's absolutely recovered. And some of our cities have actually superseded 2019 numbers as well. So we are really fortunate to be able to see that not only in a volume capacity, but definitely in an ADR perspective too.
Are you seeing the return of corporate travel and any changes to bookings?
Yes, I am. I think there is, I think at the stage where we are at, that the first phase was really when people were holding back from corporate travel, but I think we have gone past that stage. This conference is probably a perfect example of it, that a lot of us have made effort to come all the way to Auckland from other centres, or for yourself, for example, out of Australia. So that trend is certainly growing, and moving forward, I can see now some trends across some of the channels that international travels, especially on the higher level of corporates, have started to happen. For example, a large multinational company who may have a head office in the States, their executives have not traveled to their New Zealand destinations or the offices. That is certainly starting to happen. However, do find through statistics that the average length of stays seems to be growing further. So when people are coming, they are spending more time with their teams and the businesses to make the most out of it.
Because I mean, it's still, I mean, I still had to fill out, a traveller declaration to come in, and only until a few weeks ago, I was handed a three-test rat kit, which, it's unsupervised. I think, the government has to really, make it easy for people to come to New Zealand, including the corporates, because I think, being a corporate company, myself, we've got not many travel restrictions, but other bigger ones, they're saying, well, if they've, you have to fill all these things out, should you really go as well? So, do you think the New Zealand corporate recovery will follow similar trends to Australia? Because Australia's we've been out of this COVID thing. I mean, it's sort of hitting us again. Do you think it'll follow similar patterns? Nicole, you'd probably be...
I think so, yes. Yeah. Yep. I mean, we're seeing it already, but I definitely think that similar patterns will be followed, and that's what we're seeing as well.
Yeah, 100%. We've got a little bit of a lag, and that's mainly because of the restrictions that we had, like you've mentioned. But now we're starting to see really obvious trends from those big cities. In fact, I'd actually say that we're recovering faster than some of those key markets of Sydney and Melbourne for sure, into New Zealand. So yeah, really, really refreshing. It's just I guess at the moment, the general trend we can see is roughly about a 3-month lag that's coming through, but yeah.
Auckland or into Auckland, Wellington, or where? Yeah,
I mean, we really look at 4 key markets with Queenstown included as well. Not so big for corporate, but there's definitely some non-neg stuff that is that's contributing down there. But when we say recovered, it's not a bad stat to be able to say that we're 85% recovered, and it's only really our first month of being fully open. It's incredible. Call it that.
When do you see international travel coming back? International corporate picking up?
I think that some of the international corporate traveller has already started.
Agreed.
It is not as big as what probably the domestic or Australia, New Zealand based international travel. It has certainly started, and it will get better over time. I mean, I guess seasonality has got something to do with it as well. That now that we are in winter, as we get into summer, there will be more people comfortable traveling into this part of the world. Also, some of the great signs are, for example, the restarting of the United Airlines into Auckland, I think last week or this week or something like that, that they are coming back. So these are certainly clearly some signs that airlines are seeing demand coming through, and clearly that's the reason. So it has started, and it will continue to do so.
Sorry, Kelly?
I think it will be really interesting to see where those numbers and how they recover based on flight holdings as well, because it's also really difficult to get into New Zealand now.
Absolutely, I mean,
especially out of America.
And it's expensive. I'll travel economy across, but I'm still paying $890 one-way economy, and I'm flying back on Saturday. It's about $1,100. That's you can fly to Bali from Australia for $291 or something, or even I think from New Zealand. So I think the airlines. I think when the big carriers start bringing on the big capacity, the big A380s, I know Qatar is coming back into New Zealand. I think that will sort of start making a bit of an impact. But you have to have the capacity, and I think the airfares are still ridiculous. Nicole, do you see a lot of the airfares at all? Or?
Yeah, well, based on the airline data we're seeing from Amadeus, and we also have Google search data, the intent is certainly there. So, it'll be a little while, and we also have to think about some parts of the world that, like North Asia, that we were, heavily reliant on, so that won't return for a while, like China and Hong Kong, for example. But the intent is definitely there, and it should come back slowly, but it's on its way back.
Yeah.
Just in terms of visa restrictions as well, obviously there's airfare restrictions, but easing up of visas, there's delays in visa processing. So the demand is there. We find that the demand is there, the inquiries are there. It's just a few restrictions. If they're lifted, I think we'll be on a quicker path to recovery.
Yeah. What industries are coming back? Which industries? In terms of which types of corporates? What companies? Electrical, mining,
we're seeing
gas?
Technology, professional services coming back.
Pharma is obviously big.
Sorry?
I think pharma. Pharmaceutical is coming back. And a lot of that project stuff that previously was here has actually come back and recovered really quickly, which, to be honest, I thought would have more of a lag than anyone. And I mean, we've got a lot going on. We're not so reliant on needing that international travel as what we previously were. I mean, we definitely love it back. But yeah, it's really interesting to see that I wouldn't say that anything is not resumed through, it's just in a slightly smaller capacity. And when we look at it from a contribution portion, overall volume is obviously down on when comparing to 2019. But as an actual contribution into market, we're still seeing them very, very similar.
Yeah. Ali?
Recently, I came across some stats out of Asia Pac, and pharma was definitely on top of the list. Also noticed the construction, commercial construction industry was also mentioned, because you could imagine a lot of those architects and project managers, those kind of people have been holding back, and they have to physically go on site to do some of the works. So that's also another trend that seems to be coming.
Yeah. Where are they booking? How are they booking? Through GDS, through corporate travel companies, direct? Where are they booking?
Yeah, through the GDS. And I mean, they're also booking through aggregators.
Yep.
So, you know, not as much, but certainly through the GDS. And I think that's too because a lot of the compliance requirements and being able to track and being accountable for the safety and staff of their teams and everything like that. So, you know, the GDS is, you know, not going anywhere by any means. It's a big part of, you know, it always has been, it's always had growth, and I think it will continue to be a very important channel.
Yeah. There's a lot of small hotel operators here operating in areas where it does attract corporates. What sort of advice would the bigger hotels and, you know, Ali say to try and attract that corporate market? They haven't got a sales team, they haven't got, you know, big BDMs or big budgets, but they would attract. What's some advice you can give them?
I think just deciding on the tools that return the highest ROI, that give you the biggest exposure, and makes you as efficient as possible. I think we even do that as a big chain, and I think a lot of it applies for the smaller chains as well. So I know we've got a lot of tools in our industry, and we love to analyse everything 5,000 different times in a different way, and something gives us slightly different result or a slightly different version of it. But we've got some fantastic tools that give us a one-stop shop, whether that be corporate or insights or whatever it may be, from a flight, from Mhatre. And I think it's really reassuring that we've got that. And from an IT perspective, that intel is just so critical.
Yeah. Nicole, do you have any advice for the smaller operators, how to get on the GDS?
Well, I mean, it's a channel, you know, if you can maintain it and make sure that you've got the availability on it and have all the information on there. Some corporates are looking for alternatives, and they're looking for different styles of properties. Malcolm mentioned that apartments are, you know, are very popular because they've got the space. You know, they might have a balcony or opening windows and things like that. So, you know, every property has an opportunity. They just have to be out there and offering the rates and availability.
Yeah. Ali, Shweta, any advice to the small, medium-sized operators, how to get that market?
Yeah, definitely there's tools available to us to study the industry sectors that are moving and to focus on the industry sectors that are moving. We also get stats on what the ADR is and what the corporate expectations are. So just targeting the right market. I would say don't put all the eggs in the same basket, because we can't really forecast or predict what's going to happen next, as we've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
Ali, any advice?
I think one thing that over the COVID, while the corporate travel stopped, technology didn't, and technology continued to rise. And as a result of that, every property, if you look deeper, there's a lot of information available within your systems, whether you're using a channel manager or any other analytical tools. So it's all about really sometimes putting some time on the side and analyze that real-time data to really see where the trend is and what is the customer demand out there. Follow the trends in the marketplace. For example, the airlines re-entering back into the market, and can you specifically target some of those geo-target locations? Also, your content is key. I know that sometimes, especially when the channels have been slow, some of the contents have not been fully up to date, but it's probably a good time to go back and have a good look at the content and also reflecting what you're offering, especially in this current era of COVID where health and safety is a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a good point. I was going to ask it. I mean, what are corporates expecting now in terms of room, service, anything out of the ordinary that they didn't pre-COVID? Shweta? Yeah.
I don't think corporate expectations have really changed. Their expectations are similar to what they were pre-COVID, still want a quick turnaround. They probably don't understand the impact it has had, or the pandemic has had on our industry. In terms of service, we are finding that they're still expecting higher level of service. And in fact, I would say it's higher than what they were expecting before because the rates are starting to lift. I'm still finding that we're still finding.
And I think also be honest with them, because I said, I mean, I'm on a plane every week, and I came to Auckland when they allowed me back in the country about 2 months ago. And I won't say I stayed at one hotel, and it was a 5-star, and all the rooms were open. And I'm sorry to say the service was terrible. And then I stayed and came back at another hotel, and it's down near the viaduct. I won't say it's a very nice hotel. And they told me that they're operating at 40% of all the rooms open to keep that service level up. And you have to sort of, I'm not an owner of a hotel. I mean, do you open all your rooms up and try and make money, or do you keep the brand and service there? And now the same hotel is now operating at 80%, but they're still not at 100% because they need to keep that brand level. I mean, what's the give and take? It's what, Kelly?
Yeah, we're pretty passionate about this at IHG, and I would say worldwide, in particular for what we're seeing in our region. And we have had numerous conversations with stakeholders and owners over what that capacity needs to be. We will run, and our number one motto is to put our guests first, and on the back of that, we feel like everything else is an output. So there is no point for us running at 100% if we can't service it, and we need to have those real honest conversations, not necessarily externally, but mainly internally, so that we have everyone on board that, we've got no pressure from a management company or an owner company, and that we're really driving it from an operational standpoint. And I guess secondary to that is to be able to make sure on the inventory that we do have that we're maximising the biggest opportunities that we can. Yeah. So I guess we could say it's coming back to being a smarter business, and just re-looking at what that is and making sure everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the Park Hyatt, and I mean, a great hotel, but as I said, when I first stayed there, they were operating at 40%, but it was still that high level of service. And I mean, they made an impression. I always stay there now. I mean, it's a great hotel, and I know some of them in the audience. But again, I speak to other hotel owners. The owners want the whole hotel to be open. And it's really bastardizing your brand and your service. And some corporates, as you said, they're picky. They're not going to come back. So, and I'm a corporate. I travel every week. So, yeah. But what do you think, Nicole? Or?
No, I totally agree. I think it's a hard decision, but we've seen a lot of hotels make that decision. They've gone from 30% occupancy, levelled at that much, then 50, and now they're at 80. But their approach is that they don't want to go through the recovery and try and get those corporates back. So, or even not even just corporates, but anyone back, because recovery, we're all going through a certain recovery now, or we're actually up to the renewal stage of it. But you don't want to have to go through another recovery again just because you have dropped the services.
Yeah. Let's talk meetings and events. Are you seeing meetings and events make a return?
Having recently travelled, so I'm here this week from Melbourne, and I've been in Perth. I definitely think that meeting at events have returned. I think there's a desire for people to meet face to face. Walking into hotels, I was in Perth recently, a lot of their boards are filled with meetings, which is really great to see. There's still the talk of the hybrid meeting being an option. I think it's an option, but it does take planning and technology that some, hotels may not be able to facilitate or have. But my feeling is, and personally I guess, is that there is the desire to be face-to-face, to build the relationships and to see everyone, is still the preference.
Yeah, sure.
Virtual meeting fatigue is definitely setting in, and people want that in-person interaction. We are seeing that the bookings that we lost for the first half of the year are, we've seen the return in the second half of the year, so we are really busy with meetings. Definitely see the desire to meet in person.
Yeah. Kelly?
We saw it be the last segment to switch off, and we've seen it the first segment to switch back on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I agree with everybody. There is a natural desire for people to come back into a meeting space, and that trend is certainly
look at us
back.
today.
Absolutely.
We've got 400 people here, so it's interesting, yeah. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Rate, let's talk rates. Some hotels, everyone's smiling here. Hey, I'm a corporate, I travel. I'm seeing some rates out there that are just higher than pre-COVID. Justifiable, or trying to make money back, or is it demand, or, I'm not a rev manager, but who wants to answer that? Because I'm seeing some rates, I'm like, wow.
I think this is, there are multiple things driving the rates here. One is, yes, because there has been a bit of lack of demand during COVID, and now that's returning back, but inflation is a big driver in that. And a lot of hoteliers have learned that holding the rates to the level where you can provide a right level of service and have the right product, you got to charge the fair pricing on that. So there has been rates growing in the marketplace, generally speaking, as a result of that. Also, I think there has been, for hoteliers who have been around for longer post-GFC time, for example, I think a lot of businesses have learned that discounting doesn't really work. And that's great to see, some really good momentum there.
Yeah. But the demand is there. Look at Sarah's presentation. And soon we'll have this afternoon Michelle from Google, also her presentation in Sydney. The demand is there, so yeah, but you have to deliver that service level. Sorry, Kelly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm really proud of us as an industry that we haven't gone back to reducing rates.
Yep.
And I think if you look over some of those stats, we never ever got back to where we really needed to be, and New Zealand was always underpriced for what it really should have been if we talk about recovery from there. And I'm really proud that we haven't gone back into that mindset. And I all feel like it is relative. I wouldn't necessarily say from what we're looking at that there's necessarily gouging out there. I think inflation is there, costs are increasing, and it is a lot more expensive. And even though I know everyone is talking about it, if we talk about staffing, the cost of sale to be able to operate our hotels, whether that be with our own staff, whether that be with agency staff, is all really, I guess, reflective. And like you're saying, we've got demand, and we want to be able to service that demand and put New Zealand back on the map, and we're not even to full flight capacity. Yep. We need to be taking this into consideration.
Yeah, and staffing's a huge thing. I was down in Queenstown at the Hospitality New Zealand Southern Region meeting the other day, about a month ago, and they had 700 vacancies just in Queenstown, and the demand was there from Australia.
Auckland Airport, I think, was 2,500 recruits, in Air New Zealand 2,000, if we're talking about two key industries.
Yeah, so are you already seeing, or do you believe the CSR will play a big impact in the corporate tendering process this year, or is it still too early?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a little bit too early to see exactly what that will look like, in particular for Auckland, because we've been out of that, I guess you could say, RFP season in its entirety. But I think it's really, really interesting. If we look at the conversation and airtime that we were having around CSR back in 18, 19, even further behind, and as a company of IHG, we've moved to bulk amenities, and we did that quite early. And that conversation for us was, a lot of our clients were saying, "Are you doing that as a cost-saving exercise?" And now actually that conversation has completely changed, and they are now wanting to see more of those things that are coming through. It will be really interesting to see what kind of further comes out, and there's some trends for Australia that we can see at the moment that is having knock-on effects from Europe and some, I guess, tax reasons for it on new hops, etc. So I think it's a really exciting time, and New Zealand tends to be really a leader in that segment, and it will be interesting to see if we can kind of keep up and continue to push through in that CSR side of things, and whether corporates are really prepared to put a hotel or a supplier or those main decision back on and kind of decide on what their preferred hotels are based on that, or whether it will just become a little bit more of a continuation of what we have seen.
Yep, thanks. Nicole, do you want to add anything? No?
No, I'd say that I agree. Thinking about consortia and consortia questionnaires and what we see, they've certainly enhanced in their questionnaires. The TMCs want to know all about sustainability, diversity, all sorts of things. But time will tell, and to see, and we were talking about it earlier, about, how corporates choose based on that.
In line with what Nicole and Kelly just mentioned, it has always been an expectation when it comes to tender request, and we will be going into the RFP season soon, so it will be interesting to see how that progresses. But a lot of global RFPs that come out of the States, we are definitely seeing that trend there. Carbon emissions, I know in the past, not particularly with Hilton, with previous companies that I've worked for, it has been a non-applicable question, so it will be interesting to see how New Zealand businesses are benefited in terms of if there are tax benefits, like Kelly said, and whether we progress into that space and how soon.
Ali?
No, I totally agree, and I just want to add one thing. I recently came across, actually last week, McKinsey released some data around Asia-Pacific travelers, and it did say 65% of the travelers want to have a positive impact on climate. So I believe that some of that is going to affect or is affecting the travel industry or hotel stays as well.
Okay.
We're just trialling some stuff at the moment on CSR back to loyalty, and seeing how that crossover works, which will give us some really nice stats to be able to see if people are being more conscious of it, what that looks like as sitting from a loyalty component. So yeah, we're trying to put some tangible things into place so that we can keep a real close eye on it to be able to make it measurable.
Yeah, because that's the whole thing about the loyalty. I mean, we've got a session at the end of today about branding and loyalty, and if loyalty, especially in corporate, still work. I mean, quickly, do you think it still works, loyalty programs in corporate?
I think it needs to be the right loyalty, and I think it's becoming a little bit more how relevant they are and whether they have evolved and whether they're on point.
Yep.
For us, definitely, yes.
Yes.
It's been a major driver over the years for Hilton. So a lot of our business comes through brand website and through Hilton Honors loyalty programs. So definitely a yes.
Yep. Okay. One last, we're run out of time, but I'm the facilitator. I do the conference anyway. One last comment. It's good when you're up here. One last comment from everyone. What's a key takeaway or for corporate travel? How to get them back? What bit of advice would you give? Because as I said, the audience, we've got some of the big boys in here, the big players. We've got some of the small, medium-sized hotel operators, and we've got a lot of small operators as well. You want to start off, Kelly?
Yeah, I think it's just rise to the opportunity and let's rise together. I think there's enough demand out there, and at the moment we really need to be strong as a nation to be able to put New Zealand back on the map. So I think we need to do that collectively, not only, I guess if I say corporate as an FIT, but corporate as a MICE option as well, to be able to make sure we have enough availability to be able to drive and accommodate that. And I think we really need to do that collectively.
I would say, use the GDS, the travel agent system. Be mindful, travel agents are doing it tough, with resource, just like hotels are. They're doing a lot more with less, they're getting a lot more queries, having to do a lot more investigation and everything. So just make sure that your GDS channel is up to date. And it's a channel that sometimes you don't tend to, you don't have to, you're not able to see, like your book, your booking engine and stuff like that. So, use your provider and make sure that all of the information is updated, your hotel ratings, your geocoding, your policies, your imagery. I mean, we don't often associate imagery with GDS, but it's there, and your commission and cancellation policies, and your rates, of course.
Maybe follow some of the world trends as well. We are seeing a new term called bleisure. So there are a lot of people working remotely. A lot of workers have the flexibility now to travel to different destinations, work from home, and have an extended stay. So definitely see what the world trends are and tap into maybe different markets.
Ali?
I'm a data person, so always comes down to that. Use your data. And use the real-time data to understand what's going on and make some informed decision. And also, again, your content, as Nicole said, GDS is king. Just have a good focus on that.
Yep. Okay. From myself, being a digital agency owner, really have to be present, be visible on the search engines. People are still searching online. Having a good, fast website. During COVID, we became addicted to these mobile phones, and we're on them more than ever before. And corporates still like to book direct. So make sure you've got a good website, it's mobile friendly, make sure you're visible, have good imagery. Tomorrow we've got a great workshop by one of the best hotel photographers, Mhatre. Very, very important. But definitely be online and have a good website. So I'd like to thank my panel. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please put your hands together. Thank you.